This is Tao of Chow with MTG Forge, and today I want to talk to you about a deck that I've been having a ton of fun with. Now, as you may know, I've been really sick lately, like almost dying, like literally dying type sick. I still have a bit of a cough and everything, so I may just abruptly stop if I have to cough. But anyways, this deck is Modern Enchantress. Now, I saw this on MTG Goldfish, and I wanted to give it a shot. And I've done a few changes to it. So this is the basic shell of what SaffronOlive did. But what I've done is I've modified a few things. So let's go through it and just see, I'll show you around. So we start off with basically our shell of Mana Ramp. So we have Utopia Sprawl and Arbor Elf, okay, along with various different lands, which I'll go over later. And those will allow us to ramp our mana, along with Fertile Ground. Okay, and then basically what we're going to do is create a lock here. So we're going to create a lock using Ghostly Prisons. Okay, so Ghostly Prison, creatures can't attack you unless their controller plays 2 for each creature he or she controls. So already that's going to make things like super expensive for your opponent. And basically what it means is that every turn they either have to choose to cast something or attack you. Now the good thing is that once you get this, you can keep putting more of them out, and it makes things more expensive for them to attack you. Now, to continue locking our opponent out, we also have Spheres of Safety. Now, Sphere of Safety is basically a better Ghostly Prison, although it costs a little more mana. But basically, your opponent has to pay X for each number of creatures that is attacking you, where X is the number of enchantments you control. And everything, basically, in our deck is an enchantment. So, it's not unusual for the opponent to have to pay like 10 to 15 mana for each one creature to attack you. And they just can't do that, and so they can just never attack you. Now, the other things that we have, as I said, is Utopia Sprawl, so it's not unusual for us to put this onto a forest and then cast an Arbor Elf, use the Arbor Elf next turn so we tap the forest for 2 mana, we use the Arbor Elf to untap that forest, okay, and then basically retap it again, and we can get double mana from it. And if we put a whole bunch of Fertile Grounds and Utopia Sprawls on the same forest, then we can basically get a ton of mana really fast. Now, one of the cool things is, or one thing to be aware of, is it's tempting to throw all of your enchantments onto one forest, because then when you're untapping it, you can double up the mana on that forest. But be aware that if you're playing someone with Ghost Quarter, or especially blue, because they might have Spreading Seas, then they might be able to disenchant that, or change the mana of your card or whatever, and make things really difficult. So if they're playing any sort of land destruction, you got to be really careful. Okay. After that, another key card is Eidolon of Blossoms. Now, once we get Eidolon of Blossoms out, which is not that hard, we can get it out fairly quickly. You can basically draw a card for every single enchantment you play. This is our card draw engine, and once we go off, we're just basically casting enchantments, and then Eidolon Blossoms gives us more cards, and then we just get more enchantments, and we just keep casting them and getting more cards. Now, Corsair of Kruphix is great because Corsair of Kruphix gives us extra life. It's got a huge butt, so it's an awesome blocker. But one of the best things I think that people underestimate with Corsair Kruphix is that you can play lands off the top of your library. And even if you have lands in your hand, you can play the land off the top of your library. So when you draw a card with Eidolon of Blossoms, then you're actually drawing something you might want rather than just drawing a land. The other thing is it helps to thin your library. So what that means is that your library, it doesn't have so many lands in it after a while, and basically every card you draw is going to be a good card. Right, so we have our lock pieces, Ghostly Prison and Sphere of Safety. We also have a one of Story Circle, if I can find it here. Now, Story Circle is basically a protection from anything. And a cool thing about Story Circle is that Story Circle can give you protection, or can affect cards that even have protection from white. I actually didn't know this, and I tried it when I was playing a mono-white Knights deck. Both me and my opponent were really surprised by it, and we ended up discussing it. But the reason why I looked it up is because it doesn't actually target anything. Okay, so it says the next time a source of your choice of the chosen color would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that color. So even if your opponent has a creature that has protection from white, what that means is you're not targeting him with that ability, so he actually doesn't get the protection. And that means that you can still use this to protect yourself. Now, the other thing is that this can be cast not just once, because it doesn't require a 1 and tap. it's just one white mana, and you can protect yourself from from however many sources you have. So if you have 5 open white mana, you can protect yourself from 5 different things. Okay, and that doesn't mean that it's going to be like, all creatures. It could be different spells or whatever it is. Now remember, it has to be of a certain color. So this is going to be deadly if you play against red. But when I played mono white with knights, it really saved me. It was kind of frustrating for my opponent, and admittedly they probably should have won had Story Circle not come in. Okay, anyways, another great card is Luminarch Ascension. Now, once you get this, it's a little hard to get going at first, but after 4 turns where you didn't lose any life, then every time you cast an enchantment, you... then you can pay 2 mana and put a 4/4 angel creature token onto the battlefield. That's huge. Now, you might think, well, I'm going to lose life every turn. Well, not with Seer Safety and Ghostly Prison out. You're probably not going to. Now, some of the other cards that are pretty important are Starfield of Nyx. Okay, so Starfield of Nyx allows you to get an enchantment back from your graveyard at the beginning of every turn. But one of the dangers of this is it makes all of your enchantments into creatures. So now your enchantments would be vulnerable to board wipes. So I try not to do this unless I absolutely have to, or unless I have Greater Oromancy out, where all my enchantments have Shroud. Preferably I would have 2 Greater Oromancies out, and then all of them have Shroud, and they wouldn't be able to be targeted. Okay, but still, things that say like destroy all creatures, those don't target, and so you would still get board wiped. So you gotta be careful when you're using Starfield and Nyx. Okay, Sigil of the Empty Throne. Every time you cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 white angel creature token. So again, that's huge because you're going to be casting a ton of creatures. Okay, Leyline of Sanctity basically makes you hexproof, so you can't get burned out, or people can't use discard against you. It just kills those types of decks. Blind Obedience is kind of a cool card. I rarely ever win with it, but there's been times when I've taken down like 10 or 15 life with just this card, just by constantly extorting my opponent. This deck plays really slow, and so you're going to have a lot of opportunities to use this card if you can get it out. Next Fleece Ram basically is just a cool blocker that gives you 1 life at the beginning of every turn, and it counts as an enchantment, so that's pretty nice as well. Idyllic Tutor just helps you to find one of your enchantments that you might need. And Porphyry Nodes is a nice thing when your opponent floods the boards with creatures. Yeah, especially if they flood the board with small creatures, because you can just kill one of their creatures at the beginning of every turn. So for instance, I played a game where my opponent played a couple Monastery Swift Spheres, and then went into a Goblin Guide, and then to a Grim Lavamancer. And then I was able to put out a Ghostly Prison, so my opponent could only attack with 1 thing at a time, and he couldn't cast any spells to trigger their prowess triggers. And then I put down Porphyry Nodes, and it just basically killed all of his creatures 1 at a time. So that made it really tough for my opponent to win with a mono red aggro deck. Okay, basically this is the general build that SaffronOlive put together as well, except he doesn't use Leyline of Sanctity. He uses Ivory Mask as a budget alternative. I just happen to have Leylines, so I put them in. Ghostly Prison's a must-have, especially because it's so cheap right now. Idyllic Tutor is really nice because also it's cheap because it just came out in Vintage Masters, I think, or whatever the latest Masters set was. Other than that, I think I kept most things the same. The mana I may have changed a bit. Canopy Vistas, it's just a great Forest Plains, and potentially can come in untapped. Okay, this is going to come in untapped, so this is unless you have 2 or more. Sunpetal Grove is essentially the opposite. If you have it comes in untapped unless you control a forest or a plains, you're always going to have a forest or a plains, pretty much. Sunpetal Grove, I don't know why it's not more expensive. This card rarely ever comes into the battlefield tapped. Right? I'm not saying it never does, but it just rarely does. I added 3 Windswept Heaths. Now, these are pretty expensive as well, but they're definitely better than Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds. It just slows down your clock a ton. So it's nice to have them. If you got them, throw them in. And I put Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds in there as well. I think those are included, in a number of forests and plains. Now, one of the things that beginning deck builders make a mistake about is that they will, for instance, just put in instead of saying 2 Evolving Wilds and a Terramorphic Expanse, what they'll do is they'll throw in just all 3 Evolving Wilds or something like that. Now you might say, like, well, why do you care? What's the difference? Well, the difference is that some people can cast things like a Pithing Needle, right? So if they have something like a Pithing Needle that says activated abilities of a card can't be activated, and they target your Evolving Wilds, if you've got all Evolving Wilds, then you basically can't tap them for your for other lands anymore, and they're just dead draws. But if you have splits between Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, then you can, because they're basically the same card, you can still cast a Terramorphic Expanse if someone was to Pithing Needle you, right? Same thing with if someone casts like a Meddling Mage or something like that, and that's why things like, for instance, if you're playing Elves, there's Llanowar Elves and Felidar Elves and Elvish Mystics and stuff like that, and they're all basically the same card, but the fact that they have different names actually is pretty important. So if you need like 4 mana dorks like that, then just put it, like, instead of putting 4 Llanowar Elves, it's often better to put like 2 Llanowar Elves, 1 Felidar Elf, and or I think that's their name anyways, but it's not Felidar Elf, but one of the other elves, and then 1 Elvish Mystic, and they all do the same thing. They all have the same ability. So that way you're not susceptible to just mass wipe by when someone names your card. Okay, anyways, going on to that, onto the sideboard here. I made a few changes, but overall it's generally the same. More Nyx Fleece Ram in case you need more life gain and blocking. Rule of Law in case you're playing against a combo deck, so each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Some Nevermores to stop your opponent from casting some key cards. Story Circle, so more Story Circles in case you need to have some protection. I added this one, Bow of Nylea. Now this might seem like a weird one to add in there, but being able to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature is pretty nice. Dealing 2 damage to a target creature with flying is pretty nice. Gaining 3 life is really the huge one here, and then putting the 4 cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order is pretty nice as well. So, like, for instance, when you have, if your opponent's destroying your enchantments or something, you can use this to put 4 cards in your graveyard back in the bottom of your library. Well, you might say, well, okay, but they're at the bottom. Okay, but then when you crack Evolving Wilds, or Terramorphic Expanse, or Windswept Heath, then you're going to shuffle your deck again, because you just searched it. Right? Same thing if you use Idyllic Tutor. Then you're going to shuffle things back, and then they're not in the bottom anymore. So I think Bow of Nylea might be a good include. In addition to that, I have an extra Leyline of Sanctity. Faith's Fetters I just threw in there just to see how it goes. So enchant permanent. When Faith Fetters enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life. Enchanted permanents' activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. And this is generally just to try and take care of different planeswalkers. If this works out really well, I might add a few more, just as anti-planeswalker tech. Okay. In addition, an extra Sphere of Safety. Norn's Annex. Now, Norn's Annex isn't that good if you're playing against white, because they're going to be able to pay the Phyrexian mana, but it's really good if you're not playing against white, because basically they have to pay 2 life for each creature to attack you, so it makes it a race. And then once you get things like Bow of Nylea out, or Corsair Crufix, or Nyx Fleece Ram, then you're gaining life back all the time, and it's going to make things really difficult for them to race you. Finally, Open the Vaults. As a one-of, if they're starting to destroy your enchantments, you can play this and put them all back onto your battlefield. Alright, so that's pretty much the deck. It's actually a really, really fun deck to play. It stalls out your opponent. It's very frustrating to play against this deck, right? Just because it's like a locking deck, like a prison-style deck, and basically your opponent just really can't do anything. It just stops your opponent from doing anything. And I've seen my opponents get really frustrated by it. Anyways, if you do like the deck, then let me know in the comments, and also remember to like and subscribe. It really, really does help. I'll be uploading a couple gameplay videos maybe later on tonight, or else in the coming week. So anyways, please let me know what you'd like to see, and remember to like and subscribe. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. It's that time again for Random Card Review. So today we're looking at Pooka's Mischief, and let's go to Random Card here. Flash Fires. Alright, so Flash Fires is a 5th edition, so it's not going to be league. Oh, actually, it was in Wow, is it available in 9th edition as well? Okay, that means that this is actually legal in Modern. So destroy all planes. Wow, for 4 mana. This could be really, really devastating, but what I'd say is it's probably not a main board card, mainly because it's totally dead if you're playing against someone who's not playing any planes. If you are playing against someone who's playing planes, then I guess this would be, pretty devastating. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I would put this into the sideboard anywhere. I can't see any, like if I'm playing mono red burn or something like that, I'm not really caring about if someone has a whole bunch of planes. So I don't know. I think the 3.5 rating that it's got here is maybe a little high. I'd give it maybe 2.5 or 3. But I don't know. I think it's pretty cool just to be able to destroy all destroy all planes. But this sort of land hate is just kind of unusual and kind of inconsistent when you're playing. Okay, one other thing I'd like to say about this is that it's very specific to planes. But if you consider that something like Stone Rain, okay, is just 3 mana to destroy 1 land. Okay, then Flash Fires is 4 mana to destroy all this person's planes. This could be really good if you're afraid of someone playing white and you happen to put this in your sideboard. Still, I don't see it as being something that people would be really jumping to put into their sideboards. It might be nice, to have if you happen to have it, but I don't know. I could see a lot of other cards that would be better. So I would give it only like maybe 2.5 or 3 stars rather than 3.5 here. So anyways, that's my random card review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.